Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. In this video I want to basically go through retopologizing the head of this dragon demon sort of thing that I'm making. It's basically going to be this creature of fire. It's going to be like a demon that's has a dragon head and it's always burning. This is why its body is so deformed. Now I'm basically offering the Highpoly version, not the 30 million points you see on this one. I've got a decimated, more a better mesh basically on my Gumroad link that you can find in the description below. So if you want to get that, head on to Gumroad and download the Highpoly version of this. Also the Blender file that I'm going to use to retopologize this creature. So as I've said, I'm going to start off in this video with the head, and then we're going to move on to the next part of the body in future videos. I hope you guys enjoyed this series, but I would definitely appreciate if you do head on to Gumroad and get the file. Would mean a lot to me. And if you have any questions or any sort of feedback you want to give on this topic, please let me know. Yeah, let's begin. So as I've mentioned in the intro of the video, we're going to start off with our model in Blender, already decimated. So I've toned it down by about 60 to 70% of its original polygon count, and you can see that in the quality of the model. It's definitely degraded, but it has basically kept most of its important shapes, so we can actually start our retopology. And also in the Gumroad file that I'm providing, you can get the highly detailed high poly version of this model, plus the decimated version of it, all in a Blender file basically, and you can use that to do your own retopology. So we'll start off with the head. So we're going to select basically from the list, so I've got them all named, all the parts of the model. And then we're going to press the slash key on the keyboard just to isolate this object only, because we want to only retopologize this one in this video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a plane. So mesh, shift A, mesh, and plane. Now you can see we've got the plane down here. We're going to move it upwards on the Z axis, only if I can succeed, like that. And also I'm going to rotate it, but I'm just going to go into this front view. I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees, which will then make it a straight plane. Now what I also want to do is I want to bring it forward like that. Basically put it over here, and I want to set up its origin. The origin of this model needs to match the origin of this object. So the origin of this object is right here in the world center, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the plane, click on object, set origin, we'll say origin to 3D cursor, and that will help us with the mirror that we want to create for it. So now I'm going to scale it down, as I don't need it to be as big as it is right now. I'm going to bring it up in front over here. And again, it's just I want to scale it down so it basically is quite a small square rather than being this very big plane. Right, now that we have it over here, we're going to go into our modifier list and we're going to add a shrink wrap modifier on it. With that added, we're going to click the eyedropper and select the head, and now you can see the model has already moved into place around the head. One of the things you need to make sure up here, you've got this magnet looking icon which says snap. So click the snap icon and then click this arrow here and select face. So now our plane will basically snap to the faces of this dragon head. Right, so now that we have that in there, what we also want to do is we want to add a mirror modifier. And as you can see, the mirror modifier isn't exactly generating how it should, which is quite unfortunate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the origin again, as the origin has changed, and that's the problem. So we're going to go to object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor, and now you can see that it's basically fixed the problem that we had. And one thing to note is that for some reason this side here of the plane, it just seems just a little bit off compared to the one on the right side. But that shouldn't be a problem, because the moment you apply the mirror modifier, you click apply here, basically that will fix your problem entirely, because the shrink wrap will force the plane to merge with the dragon head completely. Right, so we're just going to click these on cage boxes over here, so that makes the modifiers act as if they were permanently applied. And now we can start basically retopologizing our dragon head. So we'll go into edit mode, and if we select the vertexes, we can actually start dragging them around. And as you can see, they're kind of sinking into the dragon head, so it's not really helping us. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to viewport display and select in front, which then makes the plane show up every time, everywhere we look, we're going to be able to see this plane, which can actually get in our way further down the line the more polygons we have. Right, so we're going to move this over here in the center, as we want to basically start with the center piece, with this sort of side, and we're going to work from the biggest shapes to the smaller shapes, which is very important to do as well. One of the things to do is also in the mirror modifier is to make sure that we have merge active, and then when you bring these points together, you can see that they're not actually merging. So what you want to do is you want to increase the merge limit a little bit, and then when you bring them in, they'll actually merge right there. So one thing to do is to note where your shapes are, where your big forms are, to put some polygons around those. So for example, we have some here, which is very important that we basically get some detail around that. So we're just going to drag everything up here, and now we'll start sort of putting some geometry around these. So one thing also to do is get the add-on, which is called F2. So you can see this add-on here. It comes with Blender. All you need to do is just activate it, and once you basically, it extends the make edge face functionality, which basically means if I select an edge, for example, and press E on the keyboard, it will extrude it, and because it's shrink wrapping, it will already attach itself to the model, which is quite useful. So as you can see, I can extrude around like this, which is quite useful. So again, I can go all the way up here. It's very easy. I can go into vertex mode, select this vertex over here, press F on the keyboard, and you can see already created a polygon that I can drag around like so as well, which is also very nice. So some of the things to do in here, like I've said, is to also to follow your geometry, the way it basically flows. That's a very important thing to do, and try and minimize the amount of geometry you're going to lay in to begin with, because you're probably going to want to bring in some more detail later, and you can always bring a lot more detail by actually using a subdivision modifier later on. So one of the things to do now as well is to, as I said, to do the big shapes, which is this head, horns, to go around the mouth and so on. Rather than going on the eyes and these protruding horns, you don't want to go into those yet, because you may need to add some extra detail to your whole model, and if you start with them now, you're going to basically over encumber your retopologization with a lot of edges that you probably didn't need to begin with. So as you can see, already I'm dragging around quite a lot, trying to use as much of this geometry as possible. Now this is not a very good example of a good topology flow, so in essence you may want to basically delete some of these and rethink the whole structure. So as you can see, I've sort of went with a sort of an all-encompassing sort of shape, but it's not going to work out with this horn over here. So I can press Ctrl R on the keyboard to divide these polygons into two, and then I can basically do something like this, which then will help me to sort of mark this the beginning of this sort of triangular shape over here. So let's just continue downwards towards the nose. Same thing, stop your geometry wherever something sort of like major is going to happen. So like for example this horn over here, so you probably want to stop right underneath it. But then, depending on how you're going to build this horn, you may want to come back here later and redo this as well. So right, I'm just going to put it like that, and then I'm going to come this way, and again over here it allows me to really extend, so I may want to just do something like that, and and then bring this over here at towards the eye. Now it's very important to have a look up there as well. So we've got one polygon here, one polygon here, one here, one here, one here, one here. So they basically sort of like, if you would imagine, they'll be able to link like that. It's basically the bottom line of it. But you don't want to do that because obviously you have a lot more detail right here in the between. So you're going to add probably an edge over here and then go like this. You know what I mean? So you separate it in two, and now this will help you to basically cover a lot more detail. So you can do something like that, for example. Yeah. Or you can add even another one, and as you can see, it already drags it in even more now. But again, you're now sort of like subdividing, so you're going to get into way too much detail early on, and you don't want to do that right now. So I'm just gonna bring some more polygons over here. Now we do have this nose coming up around here. Again, it's very important to work out your shapes, to sort of like fall in line with this, follow this curve. So as you can see already, depending on how much of the shape you want to sort of like get out of here, you'll make more and more polygons. So over here you can just do that because it will work just fine. Maybe you want to bring some, bring a polygon right here, down here, where the teeth are. Again, these teeth are already made into the actual, main part of the head, which then means you'll have to subdivide a lot of these edge flows in order to get the detail in. But we'll get to that, later. So in the meantime, let's just work on this cheekbone here, and let's just go downwards. Again, we'll drag like that, which is great. And now, the reason why I wanted to come all the way down here is because I want to basically show you how I'm going to like go this way. So again, I've got 1, 2, 1, 2. You don't want to, you do want to follow sort of like the same logic from above to below, or vice versa, depending on which part you started with. So it's very important to look at that. Of course, it's not necessarily required to do that. It's just gonna give you some more work later on if you don't do it now, because you're gonna have to sort of make a decision where you're going to add more detail or how you're going to sort of like tie in these polygons. So depending on where I want these, I'll probably want to drag them in, maybe more. I've got some detail in here, but again, that will only be covered in the normal map. I don't want it to be covered anywhere else. So you can see already here we've got more minute detail, and this is a protruding part over here, a triangle. So this won't work, what I've just done. I'm gonna have to create some detail around that. Let's just pull this downward even more and pull it down one more time. Come on, you can do this. That's it. So now we want to go like that. Again, follow that logic, and if we continue on with this, just like that, we basically, if we continue extruding this way, then it's going to make it so much, life so much easier by just pressing this edge over here and then pressing F on the keyboard, and with that add-on that we added, we'll just bridge things very quickly. So retopologization in Blender is incredibly easy compared to software such as 3ds Max, which is very tedious compared to Blender when it comes to retopology. Right, so now we're basically underneath, and again we may want to, but you see over here I've just cut through that through that spike, which is not a good thing. So what do we do in this instance, for example? One of the things to do to begin with is just deactivate the mirror, so over here, so it doesn't basically show when you look at the head. Already you have this problem when you go on this side, because you can't really see your model because of the in front option that we selected earlier. But now we can, we have a bit of a clearer view over here. So one thing to do is basically subdivide this, and then bring these vertices in such a way you want to wrap around this spike here, right? So once you do that, you know, we'll just drag another one over here, and then we'll drag another one over here. Could potentially, although I don't think that will work quite well, but you can potentially select these two, press them on the keyboard, and say that we want to unite them at the center, which is fine. Again, we could probably add another vertex right here, and basically do something like that, which can work. And now what we'll do is we'll select all these points, like so. We'll extrude them by pressing E on the keyboard and drag them out. Now again, they look very wrong. We'll press M on the keyboard and say we want to unite them at the center. We'll press Alt Z to see through the meshes and basically you know, try and pinpoint that spot where the center of the you know, of the spike is. We can add another edge loop around here. Well, I'm trying to at least, but for some reason it won't allow me. Let me just go into edge mode and select all edges. Yeah, very strange that it won't allow me to do it like that. So if we deactivate in front mode right now, we should be able to see how the model sort of like performs. So it's not performing very well in terms of, you know, how much detail it's capturing, and that's mainly because some of these verts, you know, the way some of these verts are placed. So you may want to bring them in a little bit, try and match a lot more with our reference, basically, with our Highpoly. So we can probably do something like that, and as you can see, it's not too bad. Okay. One other thing that you can do is you could delete all of this if you wanted to, and just try and add another sort of like another ring around here, but it should work okay for now. We'll revisit that later if we need to. Right, okay, so now we're basically moving on to this other one over here, which again, you want to wrap some points around it, but now we have basically hit the center, so you do want to come over here and activate the mirror, and then this will show you sort of like where you're going to go wrong if you continue this way. So we've got these 2 points over here, so I'm going to have to delete this whole thing completely and just bring it in like that. Something like that. That should be okay. Now, one thing that I wouldn't do here is I wouldn't continue past this point, because one thing that happens when you do symmetry, when you do mirroring like this, if you now want to sort of like merge this over here, now it's going to be a big problem. So what you would want to do is wait until you apply the mirror modifier completely and then just make these final adjustments, and that will make it a lot easier. So don't touch the center pieces, let's call them, before you get to the end. So again, over here, we can finish the mouth off in terms of the top level, like that, and then we have this part over here with the where the spike is. So again, I'm just going to drag this out because it's not going to work out the way I planned it to be. I do have to sort of like build some more geometry around that, and you can see I can drag this over here. And for some reason, as you can see, the center isn't really hitting. But I'll show you now. If I go out of edit mode and I apply the mirror modifier, you can see that the mesh itself, you see how it moved, because the shrink wrap brings it in basically. So we shouldn't really worry about these things not merging yet. It won't be a problem in the future. Right. Okay. So now we can drag over here like that, and like so. Again, make the space around the spikes. Don't go into the spikes yet, too much of a hassle to work with. Over here, as you can see, we have this sort of like shape, So what I would do is I would just maximize the use of polygons over here and just like really, really try and push things through. So for example, we can bring this all the way up here. There are places where you can sort of like start merging polygons together. So you basically see, all I'll do here is I'll add this, adds that curvature there. You can basically use some places where you can merge some polygons together so that you sort of like reduce the number of polygons you'll have in certain areas. So it's very important to be able to see when that's an opportunity. So over here, for example, one such opportunity like that arrived. Right, okay, so I'm just going to pull this in. Keep doing this like that. Now you can see we've come to a point where we're now starting with the horns, and these are just big, very big shapes. So I would basically sort of like make the decision where I'm going to split it. So I'm going to split one over here, one at the top and one at the back. So I'm just going to basically take one of these. I think it's important to look for where the curve of the horn happens, so you know where to basically stop the polygon. Because depending on how many of these you add, that's how nicer the curve is going to look on the horn. And although the normal map is going to help a lot, still won't hide the fact that maybe you've segmented the horn into a few places. Something like that basically. And now what I would do is I would go this way. Again, you can cut another here, or you can go all the way at the top. But you can go at the top and then do another edge loop in here if you need to later on. So you can do something like this. Yeah, and we can now drag this up here. We'll do the same thing over here. Look for the big forms. Again, where do the big forms sort of like start? Where do they end? So, for example, is this something that we can go this way, or shall we do this? We could probably do this. Yeah, something like that. That should work okay. Now we met back in the middle. And one of the things here, you can see we've got these sort of like indents made into the surface. So what we can do is basically, we added a loop. We'll bring that in just to make it look nicer basically. So we'll bring it this way, yeah, and then bring it like that. Bring this in. So we make this surface over here, and that should give us a bit more resolution on the, don't like how this point here is sitting, but that should be okay now. So you see we've got this sort of like protrusion coming out, so it's going to be quite visible in the when we actually texture the model as well, so it's going to look nicer. You probably want to tone these down a little bit, try and drag them on the surface. And one thing you can also do, you can select the whole loop and then deselect that and basically just extrude outwards. So just for quicker modeling. So you could go this way. What I would do is I want to basically hit all the way the back of that horn, like that, and then we'll probably do this, something like that. Yeah, something like that should be fine. And now we want to basically, we don't want to do the underneath yet, let's just focus on one side only. I mean, if you really know what you're doing, you can just extrude like so now, and that just basically saves quite a bit of time. But then you need to know how to fix these parts over here that are obviously going to get a little bit wrecked from this action. So you need to be able to balance the geometry no matter what you do, no matter how quickly you move, you need to make sure that your flow of polygons remains consistent. So I can bring this all the way up here, like that. And now we have all these spikes, which then, you know, these spikes are obviously going to be quite difficult to control. So, you know, that's the center over there. And again, you don't want to touch these spikes until you actually do the mirror modifier, until you permanently apply it, because if you do it now, you're going to be in a world of pain later on. We have spikes everywhere, as you can see. So it might be, you know, it might be worth just finishing the horn basically. So if you get the mirror deactivated, finishing this horn over here as well, finishing the neck, and then moving on to the spikes after we apply the mirror modifier. So it's really, you know, it's really important to know which part of the model you want to do next, and you know, make a decision basically on that. So you can see now I'm going around this spike and like that. Just gonna bring this over here. I'm gonna select these 2 points and merge at center. So you can see I've just created this sort of form around this spike. And just be careful if you press E for extrude and you don't actually do anything with the extrusion. Make sure you control Z, because otherwise you'll have a double edge there formed without even realizing, and that double edge is going to cause issues later on. Okay, so we have our cheek sort of made as well. We can go all the way here, something like that. There's another thing. There is no sort of like a rule that says that all of your topology has to be linked with each other. You know, you can actually, these spikes, for example, you could just make topology around them from a different, you know, from a new mesh. You don't actually have to use it. You don't actually have to have the same, you know, have everything into one model. You just have to know what you're doing. So over here I seem to have a little bit of a problem. What I would do is I would delete that, but deleting it sort of causes me other problems, as you can see. So yeah, that should be okay now. So one thing that we can do here is start off with this, and then we bridge these, and now we go this way, and like that. You can see there's quite a bit of detail over here, and especially on the Highpoly model, there's going to be a lot of things to add details of. Again, this, if I go into edge mode and try and bridge this won't look really good. So what exactly do we do here? You know, if we do that, then we can get a polygon out of here, but again, it's not gonna give us a very good result. One of the things you can do is you can add an edge loop like that, and then you connect it, and it connects quite nicely. And then you can also do something like this, bring this upwards. So see, just on the fly there, you basically find a solution to a bit of a problem, and especially here at this point, it's not that visible. So just try and balance the geometry a little bit. And so I'm doing this to sort of a, I'm doing this to sort of a low poly model, but he's not extremely low poly, so I'm still gonna have quite a bit of detail left in the character, because nowadays you don't have to go incredibly low poly unless you're making like a mobile game or something, and even those have developed in the technology around it. So this is where we are right now. We're just going to continue on with the neck now. So now I've just added this part over here on the neck, just to basically speed things up a little bit. Let's just deactivate the mirror again, as it's just really getting in the way. And we want to now sort of like work around this part here of the neck and the horn. So the next thing we want to do is let's get out of the in front view, which then basically leaves us a little bit blind on our model. But if we press Alt Z for X-ray, we should be able to see what we're doing just a little bit. Not it won't be very good, but it is something. Okay, so what we want to do here is, like I said, want to start adding some geometry to be able to build these horns. We're just gonna have to move between in front constantly. The wireframe view isn't gonna help us either, unfortunately. So we can move this to wire, but again, you'll still be able to see it just like before. So we want to basically do these spikes. So one of the things that we can do here is, for example, add some more detail from this side, as it doesn't need any more detail on the other side, which is great because we're going to unite everything in a triangle. So this is a good point where you can have a look and see how you can actually use triangles to basically get something done. I know a lot of people don't really know how to use triangles. So this is basically one of those points where you can use them. So I've just used the triangle over there. That should help. That should be okay. I'm just going to add some more geometry. See, I'm adding geometry from this side, as it won't really connect to anything else, which is very important because this is going to help me a little bit to save some polygons. So over on this side, probably want to connect these two like that, yeah. And oh, sorry, let's just go this way. See, this is why everybody hates Retopology, because it's so tedious, so much tedious work in here to do. Now if I add a loop over this way, it will just connect to everything else, as you can see, but it is going to stop on that triangle. But again, it's not going to be very good. It's going to create an n-gon. So same thing, what do we do? Again, we can add one here. I know it's basically, I just want to do it out of more points, not just 4, because I think it will just make it look way too eight-dimensional if I do it out of 4 points. So we're just going to extrude, merge at center, and just move this over here. So yeah, this is going to be a bit of a problem to eyeball it. As solid, no, as texture we wanted. So as you can see where it went, and we want it over here. So it's a bit of a nightmare to get that in here. So how do you put this point over here? That's the question. So I think we almost succeeded there, but there you go. Right, so we have that point over there. I don't really like how this is protruding outwards, so really gotta look for what we can do here. Probably do this, but then it won't really help that much, will it? So we're just going to go back. We want to basically, yeah, this is not going to be a very good patchwork, is it? So you see we have that protruding over there, but it's not really going to capture any of the details. So what do we do here? How do we get this sorted? Bit of a conundrum, isn't it? One of the things we could do, actually, let's just see if it fixes it. I'm just going to add a subdivision surface. Yeah. It's not really as good, so we're just going to go for a simple approach. See, it doesn't do much, that's the problem. So that's where the spike is. So if I go into view mode, go in front, same thing, the subdivision surface doesn't really do much to our problem here. So let's just delete the subdivision surface as it won't work for us. We'll go back to looking at this in front. So what we want to do, actually, we want to select that and delete the vertex, and we're going to select all these points again. Going to extrude. God, this in front thing, it's so useful yet so damaging. Okay. So we want to put this on this other side. Want to scale, move them upwards, rotate, bring this in a little bit, bring that in, select these points again, extrude again, merge at center, and then put them up here in the point, and that should give us a better, a better basically result, like that. It's not the greatest, not the prettiest, but this is what happens when you do these small, really small, narrow points. You're gonna have to tweak with them until you get the right sort of approach. Right, the bigger the spike is, the easier it will be, basically. So we're just gonna go on this side as well. I'm going to create a sort of a, as I said, this geometry, the supporting geometry around it. Don't have a lot of points, but can sort of like, this is the point that I want to reach, this point over here, like that. You see, because this is such a bigger spike than the other one, it's also so much easier to work with. So now I can select this, bring it up here, see that? That's quite nice, isn't it? Of course, you can also come back later and do some patchwork on some of these wherever it didn't work out quite well. But as you can see, probably this is the most tedious part of this, and the teeth is going to be the worst part, basically. Okay, so I selected all of those. And now I'm going to extrude and merge at center, and then bring that into this center over here, like that. Yeah, and that's quite nice. Okay, one of the things that we can do now is also go to our object and shade smooth, and this is how our mesh looks like. One of the things that we can also do now, go to modifiers, add the subdivision surface, and put this upward, bring it up to the before the shrink wrap, and you can see now that our model sort of like wraps a lot better. So you see, the more subdivisions you add, the nicer it will look, and the closer it will look to the, you see that now it brings in some details as well, so it's quite nice actually what this can do. Again, you can do some repairs as well, but this is obviously a lot higher poly now because I've added these subdivisions. So I'm just going to delete them, and that's our normal poly. So again, we're just going to continue on with the spikes, and then I'm going to resume this video when I'm back to the teeth, because these spikes are being done pretty much in the same way that we did the other ones as well. So now that we have the claws made, the spikes made on this side, and we have the horn made as well, plus these spikes over here, the final bit that's left is basically around the mouth and this spike over here, which is pretty much the same as the other ones. So if we go back into edit mode on this model, what we want to do is we want to make sure we have enough geometry around the mouth, so when it actually closes or opens, there's a lot of stretching going on here. So again, you may want to add some extra segments on this side, in these loops. So again, that will definitely not hurt, but again, depending on where you put them, for example over here, you are going to create a quad, but it's the wrong kind of quad, so we'll just leave it the way it is now. One of the things you also want to do is, I would suggest starting with the bottom part, for example, on this. So, for example, you know, looking at this front tooth over here, you may want to do something like this, just so just so you can capture a lot more of this detail of the tooth. Because the lower subdivision, the lower the subdivision is, the less of the detail you're going to capture. A lot of the challenge now will be with this sort of mesh from here, sort of like showing up when you select in front mode. So what I would do is I would just take this over to wire and put it in front, and then hopefully that's going to allow us to see enough of the model. And I think one of the, if I'm not mistaken, there was a way to basically deactivate back face culling, so pretty sure it was somewhere up here. Yeah, I think it was up here. Cull back face orientation, no. Wireframe, no. Hidden wire. Am I not seeing this correctly? I'm sure it's somewhere in here. It's not just a material thing. So yeah, I can't see it. Object, vertex, outline. Oh, backface culling. Right, so if I go into texture mode, no, it doesn't seem to have any effect. That's really disappointing, isn't it? Right, okay, so we'll just leave it as a wire then, and with a wire, left as a wire, and then we'll be able to start modeling around like this. If you guys have any solutions to this, please let me know, as I'm sure there are other people who are struggling with this lack of an option here. Well, I wouldn't say it's a lack of an option, it's more like it's not the right option. It's the best we've got, but it's not, as far as I know, but it's not necessarily the best option. So what you want to do is you want to create these sort of like, as I've said, these elements around the teeth. So even inside the mouth, you want to go like that, and then pull it out. Don't pull out the teeth, is not what I meant. So you want to merge these at center, position that, and then you want to basically go inside the mouth, and now start to sort of like create this geometry around that point. So now you can see it's really getting in the way. So I'm just going to do that. I've deactivated in front, and hopefully I'll be able to. You're gonna have to like guess a little bit what you're doing in here, because unfortunately there's no, as I said, there's no other way, at least not known to me, to do this. So you are going to have to sort of pinpoint them like that. Hopefully this, me showing you how to do this will help you out. Again, you want to merge these at center. Do that. I think this is a problem. Yeah, no, it should be okay. Well, it's like I'm doing the final boss of a. It's like I'm in the final boss of a game, doing these teeth here, and also focusing on doing the YouTube video. So, yeah, something like that. The bottom line is, once you sort of like cover them all, once you've covered all the teeth, and you don't have to make the sort of the sharp sort of like the actual tips yet, because the tips you basically do them like now, for example. So you can select all these points that are surrounding the tip. You can see you've got a point over here that's just a little bit lower than the rest, so now that's fine. So I've just selected them, and again, extrude upwards, scale them a little bit, merge at center, and drag it on top, and that's it. can see now it's basically we have a fully fledged tooth right there, which is great. So you can do the same thing for the next one, and basically that's how you that's how you do these teeth that are low poly, and they don't take a lot, because you could like go on for for a lot more and just try and add a lot more geometry to this, but again it's really how far do you want to take it. It's all about as I've said, how much do you want to model this, because in normally what other people do, they'll model the teeth separately from the mouth, not like what I've done, and the reason why I've done this is because I wanted to punish myself. No, a kid, but what happens is it's all about the sort of like the way the project is and how you started off, and I just so happened to model this thing out of one block rather than using multiple blocks, which I thought at the time was a good idea, but then I get to this stage and I realize actually, yeah, it was okay then, but not so great right now. So as you can see, I've just added a subdivision over there, and I'm dragging this in. I want to create my base around the tooth. I want to create my base around the second tooth as well. So like that, and yeah, adding these elements here is something that you definitely need to do. There's no real getting around this part. So for example over here as well, you want to add this element, so it's more like a triangular sort of thing. As you can see, we're sort of like doing these teeth in a triangular fashion, which in my opinion is the the right way to go about it. So like that, and I'm just going to drag this upwards. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing, because sometimes I can't see what I am doing, which is not great to say, but it is the currently the restriction, the challenge. What's the challenge? And this is the challenge, right? So as you can see, we've got most of the teeth done down here. We've got these two and then these top ones, and let's just start off a little bit on the top ones so you guys can see, and then I can basically do this without actually going into too much detail, because basically the teeth are done the moment you cap them, and you've seen already how I can cap them. They're just like the other spikes, really. So you see, I've added all these. I've got these big, these long polygons that are not going to really help us a lot. So what you need to do, let's just switch back in front view so you can see. So basically what you want to do, just like we discussed, you want a triangular shape. So you got one that goes on this side, and then one that goes on that side, and then one in the center. So same thing, as long as you can follow this sort of trend, then you're good to go, and you don't need to add any more geometry. But whatever you can't do this, then you are going to have to add some geometry. So because I added that extra there, then I can use this into my advantage to just create this sort of like incision over here, which is going to be fine. This is a center one. Again, I don't really want to add another one there, so I'm just going to do this sort of like center point. Hopefully I can work this one out. So I'll just do that, and then I'm basically going to extrude through here. So what I've done there, oh sorry, that went where it shouldn't. What I've done here now is I can then create a wall off of this one, which is okay. So I didn't need a triangular shape just because I created the wall like that. Over here, for example, you can't do that, so I need to add new geometry, which is going to help me with this other point as well, which is great. So again, dragging, I'm going to do this just to give me a sense, just to give me this point over here. Now again, I'm going to have to add something here, and I'm going to bring this over like that. You see, I've got these two smaller indents over here, so I can't just do that. I mean, I can do it, but then I will also have to add some elements, and I'm going to have to add an element here as well. So yeah, something like that, and just bring this in. put this over there. So you know, it's a little bit, quite a bit of micromanagement to do this. Okay, and now you know, just so we can start off, you're basically going to want to go inside the mouth, which is not exactly the most you know, best place to be in. Not just because it's a dragon, but also because of the complications that we're going to have. And I can see here we've got a little bit of a rogue segment. You can see that. So I'm not really sure what happened there. Clearly we had something that it shouldn't have been the way it was. Yeah, okay. Just gonna add this point over here. You see, once I added that, so if you don't cap the tooth, you can basically add more rings around before you do the what do you call it, the before you turn into a triangle. So that's also a neat thing. Just dragging these in. I have all these smaller details here, which I'm not particularly fond of, I must say. So that's fine. So you can see now we're basically going inside the mouth, and we want to sort of like create this shape, because it is, I mean, this mouth piece over here, we're going to have a tongue that's going to cover most of it. So again, you don't want too much detail. What you want to do is you want to close it, and you want to close it quick. Let's just say that. So, oh, sorry. So you want to go like that. Again, when we activate the mirror from here, you can see how far apart we are. So then, you know, you're going to go in here and you're going to start dragging these in, and that's when you start to unite them. So that's okay. Just going to do that. See, and this is how you do the mouth. And then at the far back over there, we're just going to create a triangle and just unite everything, because we're going to have such a sort of a bland texture over there, like a pure red or something like that, and maybe some oranges. You won't be able to see much. So because we're going to have the tongue in there. So again, you don't want to overcomplicate this. But yeah, that's basically how you do it. So as I've said now that you've got this this model sorted, and you want to finish off the teeth, like we mentioned, and then not sure why it's transparent, but whatever, right? Okay, so you can see now it's coming to, it's starting to come into shape quite nicely. But as you make this model more and more, you finish everything else off. What you want to do then is you want to UV map only one side, and depending on if you want to keep both, the same size symmetrical UV on top of another, so whatever you do on one side happens on the other side. That's your option. In my case, I'm going to make sure that the face is basically split into two UV, so I can customize both sides the way I want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys just a quick glimpse of how this head looks completely textured. It won't have a tongue or eyes. We're going to do the retopologization of that in a later video, but I just want to show you again how it looks like, just so you can see. So we're now in Substance Painter, and as you can see, I loaded my mesh inside. I was just checking the UVs, basically, because I've used the auto unwrap from Substance Painter. I haven't actually UV unwrapped it by hand, but I've got tutorials on how to unwrap models if you want to have a look. As you can see, the job isn't perfect. There's clearly distortions in the texture, but I guess with such a complicated mesh like this one, it would have been very difficult for Substance Painter to properly do a mesh. So I'm just going to go back to my material, and you can see how this looks with the Highpoly mesh basically applied to this. Now you can obviously get this you can get this model off Gumroad. I can see there's a bit of an error right here in the texture, but easily fixable. It's not a problem. if you go back into Blender. But yeah, as I said, you can take this mesh from the project file from my Gumroad link in the description below. And then you can play around with it yourself and just really experiment on this model and see what sort of results you can get. You can clearly see in this particular model, this is how it looks like. And again, doing a manual UV would make it so much better. This is also in 2K, not 4K at the minute, so bumping that up to 4K would make it look a lot better. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I'm going to go on to make another part for the rest of the body. So I'm going to show you how to retopologize the whole mesh, and we're going to definitely learn a few things along the way. I for one already learned finally in Blender how to basically hide certain parts of the mesh in order to properly be able to retopologize the rest of the mesh a lot easier. So I hope to see you guys in the next video. Please subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it, and have a good one.